You've been told to visualize harder, to think more positively, to believe in your dreams, and wait. But what if I told you? The reason your reality hasn't changed isn't because you're not trying hard enough. It's because you're vibrating wrong. Right now, you are broadcasting a frequency, not with your thoughts, but with your entire system. And the quantum field, it's not judging, it's not delaying, it's mirroring. This is not just another video on manifestation. This is the one that exposes why you've been stuck, why your timeline keeps repeating itself, and how to finally exit the loop. Not in theory, but in lived transformation. So, if a part of you knows you're meant for something else, if you felt the whisper, the pull, the ache to finally break free, then keep watching, because what you're about to discover could collapse the version of you that's been holding you back for years. You wake up, same room, same thoughts, same emotions, and you tell yourself, this is just life. But what if I told you, it's not life? It's a program, a timeline so deeply embedded in your system that it doesn't need permission to keep running. It just needs your participation. Every time you think that same anxious thought, repeat that same emotional loop, react the same way to the same trigger, you are choosing the old reality again. Not consciously, but energetically. Most people don't even realize they're living inside a prison made of patterns, and the bars aren't made of steel. They're made of memory, repetition, numbness. Familiar pain dressed up as routine. You're not stuck because of fate. You're stuck because your body, your frequency, your identity is still tuned to the old signal. Your nervous system doesn't care if it hurts. It cares if it's familiar. And if it feels familiar, it feels safe. Here's the first mind bomb. The timeline you're experiencing isn't chosen by wishes. It's chosen by vibration. Not your words, not your intentions, but the unconscious frequency you broadcast through your posture, your breath, your habits, your emotional defaults. That is what the field responds to. So you can journal. You can visualize. You can scream, "I am free," 1,000 times. But if your jaw clenches when you speak truth, if your breath shortens when you feel love, if your gut twists every time you look ahead, your body is telling the field, "I'm still afraid." This is why the loop continues, not because you're broken, but because you've been unknowingly energizing the very version of you you're trying to leave behind. And unless you shift the frequency of your entire system, not just your thoughts, you'll collapse the same reality again and again. Now ask yourself, if thinking harder isn't the way out, then what is? Let's shatter another illusion. You cannot think your way into a new reality. That's the trap. The belief that more affirmations, more focus, more vision boards will finally break you free. It won't. Not because those tools are useless, but because they're surface level. Meanwhile, your body, your breath, your subconscious is still married to the old timeline. Most people don't know this, but 95% of your behavior isn't coming from your conscious thoughts. It's coming from your programming. That means while your mouth says, "I choose abundance," your system is screaming, "I still don't feel safe." And the quantum field doesn't listen to what you say. It listens to your signal. Here's the paradox that breaks people. You can know everything about manifestation and still stay stuck. You can study frequency, meditate daily, say all the right mantras, and still collapse the same outcome. Why? Because the quantum doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to what you are. Your mind might crave love, but if your heart is armored, the field registers isolation. You might repeat, "I am powerful," but if your posture slouches in shame, the field sees powerlessness. You think you're broadcasting desire, but what you're actually projecting is contradiction. This is the reason people stay trapped for years, even after awakening. They try to think their way out of a cage made of frequency. So here's the truth. You don't need to think bigger. You need to vibrate differently, and that shift, it doesn't start in your head. It starts in your spine, in your cells, in your breath, in your being. Because what you embody, the field cannot ignore. But if vibration is the real currency of reality, what signal is your body really sending? You've heard the phrase, the body keeps the score. But what you might not realize is, your body also keeps the frequency. While your mind dreams of a new timeline, your body is still broadcasting the code of the old one, and it's doing it every single day. Through micro movements, tension, posture, breath, and emotional reflexes, you don't even realize you're repeating. Your nervous system? It's a translator. It constantly tells the quantum field what state you're in. And if that state is familiar fear, chronic lack, subtle resistance, that's the message it sends. Not your goals, not your vision board, but your baseline vibration. Think about it. You want expansion, but your shoulders are tight. You crave connection, but your chest is armored. You long for abundance, but your breath is shallow, constricted, scared. The field doesn't decode your intentions. It mirrors your embodiment. Your subconscious is not just in your mind. It lives in your fascia, your gut, your heartbeat, your reflexes. It's in how you flinch, how you brace, how you hesitate when opportunity knocks. And here's the truth. Most manifestation coaches won't tell you. Until your nervous system feels safe in the new timeline, it will keep looping the old one. Not out of malice, but out of protection. This is why alignment isn't a mindset. It's a physiological frequency. It's how your system speaks to reality. So the real question isn't, what do I want? The real question is, what does my body believe is safe to receive? And if your body is still speaking the language of survival, then no matter what you say, the field will answer survival back. But what if you could shift your entire system into a new signal, not by force, but by coherence? Here's the brutal truth. The quantum field doesn't care how loud your thoughts are. It only responds to your dominant signal. And most people, they're broadcasting two completely different realities at once. One from the mouth and one from the nervous system. You say, I'm ready for abundance. But your spine tightens every time you spend money. You declare, I'm open to love. But your breath shortens when someone gets close. You affirm, I trust the universe. But you check your bank account 10 times a day, bracing for disaster. That's not alignment. That's resonant confusion. And the quantum doesn't respond to your declarations. It collapses the waveform based on your energetic coherence. You could be screaming, I am free, from the top of your lungs, but if your field is still riddled with fear, the collapse will reflect that. Not your willpower, your embodiment. This is the silent killer of transformation. Contradiction. People don't fail to shift because they lack vision. They fail because they're carrying two timelines at once, and one of them is louder. In vibration. Let that land. You're not stuck because the shift isn't working. You're stuck because you're sending mixed signals into a field that only responds to coherence. This is why it feels like you're doing everything right, and still nothing changes. Because while your mouth is affirming the new, your system is still looping the old. And the field, it doesn't choose based on hope. It chooses based on wholeness. So here's the challenge. If the old signal is rooted in fear, lack, contraction, are you brave enough to stop feeding it? Because until you do, the old timeline won't release you, not because it's stronger, but because you keep voting for it with your energy. And the good news, you can withdraw that vote, starting now. But to do that, you must understand what truly collapses a new timeline into existence. So you want a new timeline? Then stop chasing it. Start becoming it. Because here's the unfiltered truth. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you are. This is the difference between wishing and collapsing. Between trying and being. Manifestation isn't a game of mental repetition. It's not about scripting the perfect vision board or reciting mantras until you're breathless. It's about one thing only: coherence. When your thoughts, emotions, posture, breath, and energy all hum in the same direction, reality can't ignore it. You become a living blueprint the quantum must mirror. But most people, they perform change. They talk like the future, but their nervous system is still married to the past. That's not embodiment. That's spiritual theater. Here's the paradox. You can't shift the timeline until you shift the self. But the version of you who lives in the new timeline already exists, right now, vibrating in the field. You don't have to invent them. You just have to tune to them, through action, through sensation, through choice. Embodiment is when you speak abundance and your body believes it. When you breathe deeply, even when fear tries to rise. When you walk with the posture of sovereignty, before the world gives you a reason to. When your heart stays open, even when it wants to close. That's coherence. That's alignment. And in the field, coherence collapses. You don't collapse a new timeline by wishing for it. You collapse it by being so vibrationally aligned that the field has no choice but to reflect it. So how do you live that frequency? Small acts, done daily. Drinking water like you're already healed. Spending money like you're already supported. Speaking like you're already safe to be seen. It's not about waiting for evidence. It's about becoming the evidence. And once you embody it, the field doesn't delay. It delivers. But if you're collapsing reality through alignment, what actually happens in the quantum when the old version of you dies? Here's the part no one tells you. You're not becoming something new. You're collapsing into what's already true. In quantum physics, every version of you already exists. Right now. The brave one, the free one, the abundant one, the healed one. They're not in the future. They're vibrating in the field, waiting to be selected. And the act of selection, it's not a choice you make with your mind. It's a collapse that happens through alignment. This is the observer effect in action. When you become coherent, you send a precise frequency into the field, and the wave, the version of you that matches that frequency, collapses into form. You don't pull it in, you tune to it, and reality obeys. So when you regulate your breath instead of panicking, that's collapse. When you speak truth even though your voice shakes, that's collapse. When you say no to the old identity, not in theory, but in behavior, that's collapse. And every time you do it, the old you dies. Not metaphorically, energetically. Because the quantum field doesn't reward information. It responds to transformation. And transformation is death. Of the hesitation, the contraction, the protective armor you've worn so long you thought it was your personality. This is why real change hurts. Because you're not just shifting habits, you're shattering the hologram of a version of you the world got used to. But here's the beauty. The version of you who aligns isn't a fantasy. It's a frequency. And once you hit it, it's irreversible. The old you can't hold the timeline anymore. And what comes next is a choice most never make. Not because they can't, but because they keep energizing the past with their attention. So the question now is simple. Are you still leaking power into the version of you that no longer exists? Because if you are, that version will keep collapsing instead of the one that's waiting. Let's get painfully honest. You're not stuck because the old timeline is strong. You're stuck because you keep feeding it. And here's the worst part. You don't even realize you're doing it. Every time you tell the same story about your past, every time you expect disappointment before the day even begins, every time you breathe shallow, rush your steps, check your phone in panic, you are funding the frequency of the old identity. And in the quantum field, energy is currency. Whatever you feed grows. Most people try to escape their old timeline by resisting it, but resistance is still attention. And in the field, attention is fuel. You can't fight what you're still energizing. And the old timeline doesn't need your belief. It just needs your participation. Each time you react instead of respond, hide instead of speak, hesitate instead of act, you reinforce the signal. You anchor the past deeper into your nervous system. That's how timelines survive. Not by force, but by habit. The mind will say, I'm evolving. But the body is still rehearsing fear. The emotions are still broadcasting lack. And the voice? Still trembling with the weight of the old version. So here's the shift. You don't overcome the past by fighting it. You override it by starving it. Starve the identity that doubts. Starve the posture that shrinks. Starve the behaviors that echo a life you no longer choose. And when you stop feeding the loop, it dies. That's when something wild starts to happen. Not just outside of you, but inside your field. Your system begins broadcasting a new signal even before any external change occurs. And once the field detects that signal, it starts mirroring something different, something magnetic, something inevitable. But the real question now is, how do you deliberately feed the new signal? With every breath, every choice, every heartbeat. You don't need more information. You need a new embodiment. Because the timeline doesn't shift when you understand it. It shifts when your entire system begins living like it already has. Let me be clear, this isn't about pretending. It's not fake it till you make it. It's feel it till you collapse it. Embodiment means your choices, your breath, your posture, your emotions, all start humming in the same frequency as the you who already lives the reality you want. So, how do you do that? Not with grand rituals, but with micro actions that carry macro signal. When scarcity rises, you breathe slower. When fear whispers, you soften your body. When the old reflex pulls, you pause, stand taller, and choose from now. This is timeline warfare, not with swords, with frequency. You're either reinforcing the old with every unconscious act, or building the new with every conscious moment. So pause, right now. Feel into your spine. Notice the tension you've normalized, the collapse in your chest, the shallow breath. That's the signature of the old you. Interrupt it. Take one breath as the new you. Feel it expand. Let your cells hear it. Let your field register it. Let the quantum collapse around it. And here's the kicker. The field doesn't wait to reward you. It shifts instantly when the signal becomes consistent. So don't wait for the evidence to act different. Act different. And the evidence arrives. Start with the smallest act. Speak one sentence from your future self. Move your body like you've already healed. Make one decision that belongs to the timeline you want. Not someday, not next week, now. Because when your embodiment becomes irreversible, the old timeline loses all power over you. And the field? It won't ask what you want. It will say, this is who you are now. You are not the same person who pressed play. Your breath is different. Your awareness is different. You're carrying a new frequency, even if it's subtle. That's how timeline shifts begin, not with explosions, but with coherence. So now the question is not if the field will respond. It's already responding. The question is, will you keep broadcasting the signal, or will you collapse back into the loop? If this stirred something in you, don't let it fade, like this video. Comment with one word that names your old timeline, and hit subscribe to stay close to this frequency. This isn't a channel, it's a sanctuary, a mirror, a gateway back to who you were always meant to be. Now breathe, because the shift has already begun.